Yeah, thank you. Um, I can share my slides. Well, first, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very honored, and I want to say that this is after midnight for me here, but this is a minor problem compared to what you're doing in the times of war. So, thank you for inviting me. So, I'm talking about interoception and interoceptive awareness, which is not a very common language word probably for you. So let me see how I advance that. So this is the overview of what I'm talking about. I'm first going to explain a little what it is, how important it is, what the neurological basis is, and the theories around it, and how we can measure it and how it's relevant for sports. So interoception, this picture on the right is from the New York Times, kind of depiction of what's happening in the brain with interoception. Is the perception from the inside of the body. So it's not what we hear or what we see. This is what we feel, what from the inside of our body, and gives us the sense of the condition of the body. The current most important definition is the next one, the process by which the nervous system senses, interprets, and integrates signals originating from within the body. So how the body uses signals and afferent impulses from inside the body. Most of this is totally unconscious, so we are not aware of it. But the elements that we can be aware of, that is part of what I'm talking about, is interoceptive awareness. So there's some part is accessible to our consciousness and self-report, and all our feelings, like feeling in love, feeling happy, feeling joy, feeling sad, having thirst, being nauseous, itching, and sensations that happen during sports, fatigue, dyspnea, overheating, pain from muscles, exhaustion. That's all part of interoception, perception from inside the body. This interoceptive awareness also is seen as a key mechanism of action in mindfulness interventions. So when we try to pay close in the moment attention to what's happening in the world, not only inside, also mindfulness is not restricted to inside the body, it's any perception that we have. So is it important? Yes, interoception is the way that the body maintains its homeostasis, and it's connected so with the autonomic nervous system, and in the brain, the main organ for the main cortex part, it's called the insula, is what on the right side is the yellow part of this graph. And interoception is involved in emotions and cognition, and the emotion theories starting from the 1800s, they all include sensations from inside the body. And yeah, so it's interoception and disorders of interoception or malfunctions or not perfect functions are involved in many clinical conditions, anxiety, depression, postpartum depression, eating disorders, addiction, PTSD, and pain, particularly chronic pain, is also a perception from inside the body. So the neurology behind it is a part of the insula again. The insula is, as you can see here, is kind of hidden inside the brain. You have to take part of the temporal lobe away to see this part of the cortex. And it is the hub for all perceptions from the body, from all the organs, whatever you feel in your belly moving or your breathing, all these sensory perceptions from inside the body go to the posterior insula, then get forward to the mid insula, which connects to emotional parts of the brain, and then to the frontal anterior part of the insula, which connects to the prefrontal cortex, is where we become aware of internal body sensations. It's different. So the anterior insula is something only humans have, and some higher primates. So there's a lot of theory that goes with it. There's perception theory. I'm not sure if you've heard of this. It's called the predictive coding model. That means that the idea that peripheral sensations come to the brain, and that's how we perceive sensations, like vision or sensory perception from inside the body. That we now know that it's not true that way. It's that anything we perceive is kind of filtered through how the brain compares the afferent sensations with existing models in the brain, or if afferent copies, or how we want to call it. So there is a prior awareness of or prior concept in the brain, what you want to perceive, what you're interested in, what you yeah, all the sensations that come up from the periphery get compared with expectations and with prior experiences. So we don't have rarely or almost never a perception that is immediate for what the impulses, like the peripheral impulses, bring up to the brain, but it's always a comparison with priors and expectations. This is here in this theoretical model. Again, and I don't want to talk too long about it. And on the right side, you can see the different brain regions that are involved in this process. So the Swiss people, Petschner and Stefan, they have developed a very differentiated model based on the predictive coding model that is not just for interoception.
Предиктивного кодування. Отже, як все це працює, і як можна проводити дослідження? Насправді, ця концепція
that is Garfinkel and Critchley, which is pretty much the dominant theory at these times. There's some other models that came up, but this is still pretty much the most valid. So they distinguish interoceptive accuracy, which is kind of an objective measure. For example, you can compare the perception of your heartbeat with how the heart actually beats. So the number of beats that you think you feel compared to what the EKG measures. So it's an objective measure. Then you have interoceptive sensibility is the term that is used now. That is kind of the self-report about what you're perceiving and how you perceive it. And then there's another term, interoceptive awareness, how the British people define it, is kind of the confidence in one's own accuracy. So that accuracy, again, is organ-specific, like heartbeat or tension in the belly. And this metacognitive concept, interoceptive awareness, is seen as how confident are you, how does your self-report match up with the objective measures. So I'm using interoceptive awareness more general, and that's another way of using it. It's just anything that you become aware of from the inside of the body. How can you measure this? So the gold standard still is the heart rate tracking task from Chandri. This is about 30 years old. And as you can see here, on the right side here, the correlation with the real heartbeat is 0.16, which is kind of the relatively poor. So there's a lot of critique on this objective measure. It's still most used. And then there's another option is kind of the heartbeat tracking task, where you get heartbeat signaled in a visual or sound in the synchronous or asynchronous way, and you have to click which one it is. So that's the heartbeat tracking accuracy task. And they were compared with each other, and they are also only correlated 0.27. So objective measures are very limited, and many people in the interoceptive world, research world, don't want to use them anymore because they're so questionable. Others defend it. So there's a better method that has been applied in Germany and in Lithuania. They use heartbeat evoked potentials, which is an EEG measure at the brain, where you can see when you perceive their heartbeats, how the level of that electric activity can be measured. And that has been shown to be correlated to both interoceptive accuracy and to other dimensions of interoception that I'm going to talk about. So the point with interoception is that it's a very complex mechanism. It's not just complex, it's not just bottom-up impulse that comes from the periphery or from an impulse in the belly or in the heart or in the breathing, in the lungs, but it's also a comparison with the top-down process, with your predictions, with the expectations, and has to do with also with your emotional and your style of attention. So the way you perceive the interoceptive impulses is so complex that these accuracy measures don't really address that very well. I like to compare it like you see a big painting from Picasso or Magritte or somebody, and you want to have understanding what the painting means. The vision accuracy is not very helpful for that purpose. So interoception is much more multidimensional, and it's not clear by itself whether interoception is something good or something bad. Like we know patients, they have hypervigilance and hypochondriacs and somatization, and they have all these perceptions. And this is kind of an anxiety-driven style of interoception. And on the other hand, we have now with meditation and mindfulness, we have a beneficial way of body awareness. So body awareness or interoceptive awareness can be maladaptive or beneficial. And that needs to be disambiguated. And that's where accuracy measures are not able to do that. So therefore, we developed in the team here at UCSF a self-report measure, which also is translated into Ukrainian from one of your colleagues at your university, Dr. Voloshenko. I have a hard time with all these names. It is an 8-scale questionnaire with first 32 items, and now it's a second version with 37 items that has been now translated in over 30 languages and is used in many countries. So the 8 scales have first, there's just the first scale is noticing that you just perceive what's happening in the body. It's a description of certain sensations that you how well you can perceive those. The next 2 scales, non-distracting and not worrying, is how you cope with those sensations. And then the last ones are kind of regulatory elements of interoception. How are you able, for example, to still perceive your body sensations when you're giving a presentation or when you're talking with somebody else? Are you still having some perception in your body, or are you totally in your mind? And there's different levels of self-regulation. How can you use the attention to the body for regulating your arousal, for example, and your anxiety? So the Maya questionnaire, that's multidimensional assessment of interoceptive awareness, it tries to overcome a negative bias that is often associated with somatization and anxiety-related symptom reports, and tries to capture also the positive qualities when you are aware of your body, how that can be helpful for, in your example, for sport, for example. So this shows the 8 different scales, how they respond, for example, to a 3-month-long mindfulness practice. So self-regulation is one of the key elements here, how well you can regulate your internal states by perception to the body. So, and this has been applied in like mindfulness interventions and measured whether interoceptive awareness improvement mediates the benefits of mindfulness interventions. And they found this was done in not many studies, like women with drug dependency, patients with chronic pain. I'm a pain physician, so I'm mostly interested in pain. patients with depression, with cognitive impairment, PTSD. So war veterans with PTSD, for them, that might be important too. So why is it interesting for sports? So for me, this wasn't that clear when I was invited to talk about it. So I had to review a few studies that are around. So there's there's several reports that are relevant for sports. One is a narrative review that found out that interoceptive processes help regulate in sports the exertion, the self-regulating for how much you exert yourself based on the perceptions from inside the body and how much you are aware of those. And then that in one direction, and also the activity itself supports the perception of internal body signals. So there's a circular relationship between activity, interoceptive awareness improvement through physical activity, and then on the other arm of the circle, also again, improvement of performance if you are more aware of your body sensations. So this is a study where they weren't really clear that the accuracy improves with more intense physical training. But on the other way, people who have higher interoceptive awareness are better in shooting, for example, in arch, bow and arrow, and that interoceptive attention can be improved through mindfulness training in sports. So the narrative review found that mindfulness and acceptance-based interventions can enhance athletic performance. And when they do this, this can be mediated by improved interoception. And a systematic review showed that mindfulness-based intervention enhance elite athlete sports performance. And in a big study in San Diego in California, they did some mindful performance training, and all this also was shown with the Maya scale that the self-regulation increased. So in two Italian studies with adults and with adolescents, they found that improved interoceptive awareness protected against injuries in the teenagers, and in adults, higher levels of body trusting, attention regulation, self-regulation, all the Maya scales had improved the feeling well and less stress and enjoying the sports activity after resuming sports after the hiatus that they had from COVID. So this was after COVID. And this is one study from the Academy of Science in China, in Beijing, I think you say, where they felt where a woman, this researcher compared three different levels of sports: elite athletes, non-athletes, and non-elite athletes. So kind of the mid-range of, but not star athletes. And all they had a hierarchical differentiation in the Maya scale, and so the highest, most efficient sports athletes had higher levels, particularly of non-distracting. Means that's one of the elements. The question is, when you have discomforting sensations from running, for example, do you pay attention to these or do you distract yourself from them? Paying attention is interoceptive awareness. Distracting yourself is the opposite. So non-distracting was positive correlated with the sports performance. So paying attention, interoceptive awareness to your sensations from the body seemed to enhance the performance. And on the other way, doing sports training seems to enhance interoceptive sensibility or awareness. And then they found also that there were differences between men and women. So and the men actually seem to be better in that. I don't know how important that is, but it brings together mindfulness and meditative kind of styles of attention training to sports athletes, that this is beneficial, and this can be measured with the Maya questionnaire as a self-report measure. So that's part of my work. These are my main collaborators at UCSF and other places. And I hope it was not too long what I'm saying. So I don't think I have time for the discussion after the session because it's after midnight here and I have to go to bed. I have to see patients tomorrow morning. But if there's questions right now, I'm happy to respond to. So I'll stop sharing here. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to give this little talk.
Dear Professor Wolf, thanks you very much for such an interesting and useful information. It activates our mental activity, definitely. And I do hope
Can I
that
ask
we
a
follow.
question?
Yeah, please.
Can I ask a question?
If they allow you, if that's time, yeah.
Just a short question so you can go to sleep. That during traumatic brain injury, like in sport, when they hit the brain, does it affect this interoceptive function?
Yeah, I don't think there is good research yet on traumatic brain injury and interoception. We don't know.
Or maybe aging, when the
Aging, yeah. We know from aging that interoceptive awareness goes down. However, the insula, for example, when you do lots of interoceptive awareness, like with yoga or meditation, the common shrinkage in the cortex at the insula doesn't happen in those people. And people who are doing yoga for a long time, like 30 years of yoga, they have a higher pain threshold, and correlated to the pain threshold is the cortical density of the insula. So the more you do pay attention, it's like it's not a muscle training only, it's also a training of your awareness center in the brain, which is the particularly anterior insula.
time to start to do yoga.
Right. Well, thank you for the question.
If there is no questions, thanks a lot for joining us and have a good night.
Yeah, and I hope you have peace and strength to go through the war.